शंकी चक्री चनंदिनी वासुदेवी शंकी चक्री चनंदिनी प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Okay. Hari Om everyone. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
Hari
Hari Om
Hari
Ji.
Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Ji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om everyone.
So we shall continue our exploration of the Vibhuti Yoga, the Vibhutis of the Lord, and we'll start with questions. There are a couple of questions we have in the group. Rashmi ji, are you here? Okay. Vijay ji, are you here? Vijay is not here. Vijay ji is not here. Okay. Okay. Chapter 10, verse number 20. Personifying Brahman, Krishna further declares himself as the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. How is Brahman the middle of all beings? Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarvabhutastaya Sthita. Aham Adishcha Madhyamcha Bhutanatmanta Evacha. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. How is Brahman the middle? Brahman is that very enlivening force that is supporting your body to function, your mind to function, your intellect to function. It's that enlivening principle which is supporting, it's that ocean which is supporting the wave. Without the ocean, there would be no wave. So the middle of beings is that time where they exist, where they are manifest. You, the individual, are manifest right now. You are living. You are appearing. You are a Vyakti. उस व्यक्ति को व्यक्त करने की जो क्षमता है वो ब्रह्मन से आती है। प्रज्ञानम ब्रह्म, ब्रह्मन is that consciousness. It's literally an enlivening principle. Without Brahman, the body is inert, the mind is inert, matter is inert. Just like the bulb is inert, without electricity, no matter how powerful the bulb, it will be a showpiece in your house. I went to Thailand right now. We had bought a lamp from there, but it was a special lamp. Mm, The bulb needed for it was special, and the shade needed for it was special. For 2 years, it sat in our house. Now, once we connected the bulb and put electricity to it, it got enlivened. So this time while the bulb is glowing, while it is manifest, what is that power that is supporting it? What is the essence of it? So I am the middle of all beings. You think right now I am Rashmi, I am not Brahman. No, you are actually Brahman. Rashmi is just a Namarupa. So I am the middle of all beings. And when this being will perish, when we have to say bye bye to Rashmi, I will be there. When the Nama and the Rupa, Rashmi, goes away, that which is truly you will remain. I am the end of all beings. And before Rashmi got a name and form, before your parents even decided what to name you, you were there. You were Brahman. Tattvamasi. So I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Aham Atma Gudakesha. I am that self. I am that core. I am that essence. What is the significance of the word radiant used for sun? Among luminaries, I am the radiant sun. The radiant sun, the radiance of the sun is just the brilliance of it, the inconceivable magnificence of it. So it's just for highlighting the magnificence of it. So he uses the term. He uses the term Anshuman. Anshuman Ravihi. Raviram Shuman. So Anshuman. The radiant, inconceivable, brilliant. And that's why it is chosen among the luminaries, because it is so brilliant. Once it is there, everything else gets overshadowed. Nothing else is visible in the bright sky when there is the sun. Right? So that's why perhaps he's using the term radiance, brilliance. How do we, with Ascharya Bhava, use these vibhutis, these divine glories, to invoke immense bhakti in us? You cannot. The vibhutis are not for you to invoke bhakti. How much ever bhakti you have, to that extent, these vibhutis will resonate with you. Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. You must have chanted that 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago. Now perhaps after learning so much about Vishnu, maybe that the meaning of this beautiful verse hits differently. Or at least it's meant to. Who is Vishnu? You can imagine that. Imagine Krishna standing in front of Arjuna while Arjuna is wailing and crying and arguing, and Krishna has that slight smirk on his face. Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet. The more you learn about, the more you immerse yourself in spiritual knowledge, what is the symbolism of the Chaturbhujam, the more you connect with that, the vibhuti will have more of an impact on you. The description, the manifestation, the elaboration of the Lord will have, you'll be able to connect with it more. So bhakti doesn't come simply by hearing about the vibhuti. How much work have you put in your spiritual journey to delve into the depth of spiritual knowledge? To that extent, bhakti will be invoked in you. And to that extent, each of these vibhutis will be like a music to the ears. Otherwise, it'll just be something we have to do. You know how people do pujas in their houses. Oh God, pujari ji, ye kitna der chalega? Nobody has any clue what is being chanted. Taryambakam yajamhe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanat mrityumukshayamamritat. If you understand the meaning of that verse and you're invoking Shiva there, oof, it will make your hair stand on end. It will immediately take you to an exalted state. But if you don't have that depth, then it'll just be another thing you chant while you are adoring the Lord. So you cannot use these vibhutis to invoke bhakti or to invoke Ascharya Bhav. Through your sadhana, Ascharya Bhav will be invoked. Through your sadhana, bhakti will grow. And that's when these vibhutis will sort of truly, support your sadhana. Right? And I can assure you that, say for example, take Vishnu Sahasranam for example. You may have chanted it with a certain mechanical manner a few years ago. Having studied all of this in the last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, go back to the Vishnu Sahasranam and see how you relate to those verses. See how you relate to those names. Kshetrajño Kshara Evacha. That's the name coming in the Vishnu Sahasranam. It comes from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, when you understand what is Kshetrajña, what is Kshetra, when you understand chapter 13, that will hit differently. Right? So, these vibhutis cater to the mind, but the mind has to be ripe. That's the idea. That's what I'm saying. You have to ripen the mind with sadhana. Vijayji here. Hi, Vijayji. Vijayji's question is, where's the question? It's got buried. Where, when, and how did we lose all the learnings, statecraft of the yesteryears? Which learning and which state? Are you talking about Kautilya statecraft? Are you talking about all this spiritual wisdom?
I'm talking about our capabilities of identifying the grahas. I'm talking of capabilities of all the knowledge we had, the universities we had, how intelligent we were, how well informed we were about so many things in the world, where today the Western powers are saying, and they say, hey, we did it 1,000 years ago. How did we lose all that? To what? To whom? How?
No, knowledge is first lost to yourself before it is lost to anyone else. So, as you said before, that there's I'm going to mute you just because there's some background noise. As you said before, that where there is peace, prosperity, which is the outcome of knowledge, which is the outcome of sort of a well-organized system founded on knowledge, there is complacency. Number two, knowledge requires effort to be transmitted. Where there is complacency, there is lack of effort. And so naturally there is a gradual decay. This all works on this all functions on the cycle of demand and supply. Number three, even though at a socio-cultural level, at an incredible scale, this knowledge was prevalent or this wisdom was prevalent, at any point of time only a small minority of people actually go to the depth of knowledge. This is true today, this is true thousands of years ago. It's true throughout time. what is the proportion of people who seek to go deep? The grosser something is, the more numerous it is. How many followers do you have of anything that is material or sensual? You'll have thousands and hundreds and thousands of followers of some kind of activity that is catering to the senses, some kind of activity that is catering to, how many participants do you have in the stock market? Millions of participants. How many participants do you have in something that is subtler, perhaps at an emotional level? That is still quite numerous, but much lesser than physical or sensual. Intellectual pursuits get even fewer sort of deep, consistent followers, and spiritual gets a handful. So going to the spiritual depth of things is a rarity, right? So given all of these things, complacency, the effort required to transmit knowledge, and the minority of those who actually pursue it to its depth, that's perhaps a reason why, to a large extent, culturally, we have disassociated ourselves in a lot of ways, right? But that's not to say that all is lost. I mean, what is incredible is that despite all of these sort of forces, coupled with external forces of influence and change, this tradition stays very much alive. You and I are speaking out here in such an honest and deep manner about these scriptures. It only speaks to the glorious ways in which our ancestors have found a way to preserve it and sustain the vicissitudes of time, right? So what you must appreciate is that these are cycles, and this is not the first cycle that has come. Every reformation, every teacher, every new direction that this culture has been given has come at a time where there has been a decline. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthamanam adharmasya tadatmanyam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. From time to time, I appear in the form of those who will revive this culture, this tradition, because this is sanatana, it is eternal. So these cycles are a part of nature. These cycles are a part of civilization. And praise to those enlightened sages who have found a way of transmitting this in a manner that survives time, right? Which is why you have such a diverse tradition catering to. You see, if this was only given in the form of raw philosophy, there would be very few followers of it. But the fact that we have found not only intellectual but devotional ways, mystical ways, so many practices, so many rituals, that we've managed to at least preserve some portion of it. We've managed to preserve the kernel, and where the kernel is preserved, at the right time it will flourish again, right? So because of internal decline, external decline becomes external factors gain a lot more power. So we can sit and complain about all the external factors, about all the invasions, but what allows for an external decline is already an internal decline. That's what this is a problem with a lot of sort of these sentiments that that have arisen in the last several years. We want to blame an external force. Even now we are sitting and glorifying the past. Oh, we were great. How does it matter if you were great? You're not great right now, and you're still looking for external validation to seem great. If you were truly great, then embody this knowledge, translate it into living wisdom today. That's when anybody will care to notice. Otherwise, everybody will simply. Others are doing it. Others are trying to take wisdom from yesteryear and trying to benefit from it, and they have all the right to. This knowledge doesn't. Nobody said this knowledge belongs to India. Nobody said this knowledge belongs to Hindus. This is Sanatana Dharma. Dharma, it is because it is Nitya, it is permanent, it is Sanatana, it is for all, for everyone. whoever takes it, whoever drinks from it will benefit from it. Just because you're born in this land, or just because you have a certain surname which designates you from a particular religion, it's not that you have exclusive, you know, rights. You don't have any rights to this. So where there will be demand again, this will surge, right? Right now you're seeing a demand, particularly from a lot of West, but a lack of depth perhaps. There's demand, but a lack of depth, because such populations, even out here, look at you and me. We're all from relatively, well-off places. We're all relatively peaceful and prosperous in life. And where there is peace and prosperity, there is space for contemplation. It's just a fact, right? For the vast majority of people who are still pursuing material security and material pleasure, they don't have the time or inclination to delve into this in depth. Although there's no hard and fast rule. There's no hard and fast rule that, oh, enlightened people will only come from among the rich and prosperous. No, in fact, the opposite is quite evident. But at a collective level, there's going to be far more engagement into these themes, into spiritual exploration, into some kind of a sort of trance wealth exploration, only from those who have experienced wealth. So the West has experienced wealth, and that's why it is delving into these kind of things with a certain kind of intensity. But
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, we will continue our exploration of chapter 10, and I believe we left at verse number 23. So we start from verse number 24. पुरोधसां च मुख्यं मां विद्धि पार्थ बृहस्पतिं सेनानीनामहं स्कन्दः सरसामस्मि सागरः. And of household priests, O Partha, know me to be the chief Brihaspati. Of generals, I am Skanda. Of lakes, I am the ocean. So continuing with the theme of identifying with the most glorious, the most prominent, the most essential, that which is at the core, that which represents anything in the best way possible. That's the general theme of all of these vibhutis. This is not the only way to talk about vibhutis, but this is the theme in this particular chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. So he says, among all the priests, when you think of all the priests, your first thought goes to, or perhaps the chief thought goes to Brihaspati. Brihaspati was the guru of the
Devas.
Devas, the gods. So forget all the gurus of us humans. Imagine who's the greatest guru? Who is the guru of the gods themselves? Brihaspati has been designated Jupiter, the planet Jupiter. And those of you in astrology, where is your Jupiter? Where is Brihaspati sitting in your charts, right? It has a great emphasis on what kind of personality you may have. So whenever you think of who is a priest is not someone who's just doing a ritual. A priest is a preceptor of knowledge, a preceptor of wisdom, one who knows the essence behind the ritual. And that's why they have been designated to conduct the ritual, right? So that depth of learning and wisdom, that depth of understanding and clarity, awakening, is the endeavor and the accomplishment of a priest. So among all priests, I am Brihaspati, the foremost. Of generals, I am Skanda. Skanda, Ayappa, Kartikeya, a deity, of course, less worshipped in the northern part of the country. But if you go to the south, perhaps one of the most prominent Sharanamayappa, Hari Varasanam, that beautiful bhajan. In fact, I was thinking of playing it in the beginning. Maybe next class we'll play Hari Varasanam in the beginning. Today I was listening to the Vishnu Sahasranam, so I thought I'll share it with you. But next class we'll listen to Hari Varasanam. Skanda, just like Brihaspati was the chief, was the priest of the Devas, Skanda was the general of the divine armies, right? And Skanda or Kartikeya, as we know, we all know Ganesha, but few of us know much about Skanda and what Skanda represents. We often think of spirituality as God helping us. Bhagavan, please help us. Please remove our obstacles. Oh Ganesha, please bless us so that we may overcome all the difficulties. We always think of God is going to help us, but no, actually, we have to help ourselves, and that is Skanda. Skanda represents that force of spiritual prowess, the general of the gods, one who didn't back away from a fight. Spirituality is not to surrender your capabilities to some god or goddess. It is to invoke in you that strength to overcome the obstacles itself. So, if Ganesha provides you that support, Skanda is that strength itself, right? So, if you look at the Puranic stories of how Skanda came about, also it came about at a time when there was again a lot of confusion and chaos in the world, and Lord Shiva was meditating. Lord Shiva is like, I don't have time for all of this, and everybody's like, please help us, please help us. So I don't know who it was. Was it Lord Indra or someone who who took the fiery seed, the sperm of Lord Shiva, and sort of from it came Skanda, and essentially Skanda's very essence was to fight unrest, fight chaos. So Skanda represents in you that power to hold yourself in a challenging situation and address it with wisdom. So the proximity to Shiva, being Shiva's son, means proximity to wisdom. But at the same time, that prowess represents not backing away. Spirituality is not backing away from a challenge. It is about being in the thick of things and dealing with it as it needs to be dealt with. It's not about running away in a manner of being afraid. No. It's about taking challenges head on intelligently, not having a false sense of bravado, intelligently, objectively, not saying too much, not doing things unnecessarily, not having a big grand show of machismo. An intelligent but fearless way to take up any challenge in life. And that power within you is Skanda, is Ayyappa. When you pray to Ayyappa, you seek sort of the invocation of that power within you. I am the ocean of lakes, among bodies of water, I am the infinite ocean, that which extends on all sides, a lake whose ends you cannot see. Right? So again, expressing that infinitude, that glory of the ocean among all bodies of water, among all sagaras, among all sarasams. And he continues, verse number 25. Maharshinam Maharshinam Bhriguraham Giramasmekam Aksharam Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi Sthavaranam Himalayah. Of great sages I am Brihu, of speech I am the monosyllable Om, of Yajñas I am the Japa Yajña, of immovables I am the Himalaya. So when you think of sages, think of the great glorious Brihu. I am that Brihu. Every Manvantra, previously we've talked about Manvantras and Kalpas. So every Manvantra has Saptarishis. And in this Manvantara, of course, we have Saptarishis ourselves. And Brihu is the foremost among them, right? One who had incredible foresight, and which is why in certain astrological traditions, some of you may have heard of Brihu Samhita, right? Now, whether it is, I don't know if there are any sort of well-regarded preceptors of Brihu Samhita, but again, They say that a page of your life has already been written, conceived by Sage Brihu. Means someone who has deep insight into the nature of creation, one who can see the future. See, if you can see the future, you'll be prosperous because you'll know what to do. Imagine if someone knew what's going to happen to the stock market today, an insight into the future, right? Now, you may not know what happens today, but if you have a deep insight into the economy, you make intelligent decisions. If you're able to see change before it appears, if you're able to have some foresight, you'll be able to position yourself well. So this foresight comes from a deep understanding. So among all the sages, one who has this ultimate foresight, I am Brihu of great sages. Of speech, I am the monosyllable, Om, the foremost sound of the cosmos, that deepest sound that represents God. In front of this sound, all else dissolves and all else is unnecessary. Ultimately, the purpose of all sadhana is to bring you to that chant of the single mantra, Om. If you read the Vedanta treatise, there he briefly speaks about, the symbolism of Om, not only the philosophical symbolism about how it pervades the three states of consciousness, but even how it pervades sound. Begins from the root, the base of your throat, and ends at the mouth. So this entire range of speech, Om pervades this entire range of speech. All speech is pervaded by Om. And of course, philosophically, Om is the ultimate symbol, the ultimate idol representing God. It is the chant of the universe, as it were, the chant of the cosmos. So among all speech, beyond what is expressed in scripture, I am the most fundamental. I am the monosyllable, Om. And among yajnas, I am Japa Yajna. All sorts of yajnas are there, enumerated, elaborated in the Vedas. Particularly the Yajurveda talks about innumerable yajnas. We've also talked about several yajnas in the Bhagavad Gita. We've talked about Yoga Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Dravya Yajna, Jnana Yajna. He says, among all yajnas, among all actions done in a spirit of yajna, what is the foremost, what is the most essential? He says, I am Japa Yajna. Japa is that state of mind in concentration. When you consolidate all your efforts to bring your mind to a single pointed concentration, it requires tremendous effort. It requires a lot of sacrifice on your part. All the tapas you have to do to bring that mind to that discipline. And this japa is the gateway to Ananya Chinta. This japa is the gateway to dhyana. This japa is that gateway to samadhi, to bring your mind to samabhav, complete equanimity. So among all yajnas, understand, all the practices you do, all the spiritual disciplines you do, all the knowledge you gain, all the bhakti you practice, all of that is to bring your mind to a state of concentration for Japa Yajna. All the yajnas, their purpose is to culminate in Japa Yajna, so that your mind comes in constant jap. When your mind is in constant jap, then you have attained Vanaprastha. Then you are in a silent communion with the Lord. So, I am that culmination of all yajnas. I am foremost of all yajnas. I am Japa Yajnas. Among the immovables, I am Himalaya. Among the The most glorious, immovable structures. What can you conceive of in the world? It is a mighty mountain. A mountain is immovable, it stands in the way. A mountain has a tremendous impact on the climate. Why? Because it's literally a barrier. The reason we face, we've all learned in geography class in our childhood. Why does India have monsoons? Because of the Himalaya. Think about it. What is the scale of that? You are alive, I am alive because of the Himalayas. Because they've decided, I will not move from here. Clouds, you go back, you give rain. So thousands and thousands of years of glorious history. This entire civilization. And it continues to give. Every year we get from the beautiful Gangetic plains, we get so much. We sustain ourselves. It's all because of Himalayas, because the Himalayas are immovable. So, of course, among all the mountains there were, or what they may have seen, culturally we may have seen so many mountains, but what is the highest? And now we know the highest peaks are in the Himalayas. Among the top 10 peaks in the world, I think 7 or 8 are there in the Himalayas, right? So, among all the immovables, I am the Himalaya. And he continues, verse number 26. Ashvathas Ashvathas sarvavrikshanam devarshinam cha naradaha gandharvanam chitrarathaha siddhanam kapilo munihi. Among all trees, I am the Ashvatha. So, the people tree, the Ashvatha, of course, for its glory, for its grand appearance, has been, characterized as a special tree. And later in the Bhagavad Gita also we'll see he'll identify the Ashvatha as having a prominent place in the spiritual journey, right? Later in Purushottam Yoga, he'll talk about the Ashvatha tree. So among all trees, I am the Ashvatha. Trees are such glorious things. They provide shade. They provide solace. They provide a refuge. They provide life. They provide fruits for enjoyment. And among all trees, I am the glorious Ashvatha. I am Narada of celestial sages. We've all seen Narada in a very rather comic form, especially since you've seen Narada in, if you've seen Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana, he appears kind of comically. But Narada is a celestial sage, Deva Rishi. And among all Deva Rishis, I am Narada, he says. See, Narada appears in all sorts of situations. And it almost seems like he's provoking, like panchayati kar rahe hain. But if you notice any of these episodes, that provocation is actually bringing about a lot of transformation in whoever they are meeting, whoever Narada is meeting. Of course, one of the most famous stories is Narada meeting Valmiki before he became Valmiki, right? So Valmiki was a thief who would sustain himself by stealing and torturing others and creating havoc. And any thief will have their reasons for stealing. They'll say, I have to provide for my family. So much wrong has been done by me. Everyone is doing this, that. So every thief has a justification, has a sob story. But what did Narada do? He didn't go and preach to him. Stealing is wrong. You all know the story? What happened with Valmiki? So Narada goes to Valmiki and says, hey, this family you're stealing for, or you say you're stealing for, are they only going to enjoy what you steal, or are they going to partake in your sins as well? And Valmiki asks his family, asks his wife, hey, Will you share my karma for all this that I'm doing to others? The wife is like, no, no, no. How can I share? You're doing it. Why should I share it? Then he asks his old mother, Mother, will you at least share my sins? No, no, no. How? Look, I'm already suffered so much. I'm already so old. How can I suffer more? I can't share your karma. So Narada went and did, he provoked Valmiki. Introspect into the nature of your actions. And that intervention transformed Valmiki. It made him Valmiki. It made him the great Valmiki who gave us the Ramayana. There are several other episodes, if you were to come across in the Puranas, and you don't have to go through many Puranas, you can literally read online on Narada. So, if you have to look at it symbolically, what does Narada represent? Narada perhaps represents that deep inner voice in us. When we are so deeply engrossed in a certain path in life, but we are actually lost. And that voice comes up, what are you doing? Almost provoking us to look at this mask that we have started to wear, or we have worn for many, many years. And that voice is almost provocative. That voice almost seems like it's appearing from a deep wisdom. It's like a compass that knows the truth and is showing you, hey, what are you doing with your life? So that voice that provokes change in us, that's Narada. That's the symbolism of Narada. And of course, it's been given this celestial form, traveling between lokas, traveling between time, because it represents a deep inner wisdom which has lived through the ages, which perhaps you're carrying from multiple lives that you have lived. You don't have a memory of that life, but perhaps you have some recollection in the form of this voice. That what am I doing with myself? That voice is actually the spark for change. No matter how many lectures you listen to, no matter how many gurus you listen to, unless that voice, unless Narada speaks to you, you won't lift yourself up. So it's almost like a very productive provocation that Narada provides. And therefore, among all these sages, I am Narada, who cares to come into your mind and provoke you. It's a great provocation. It helps transform you. Right? Among Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. Now, Gandharvas were a class of beings, were a section of beings that delved into beauty, poetry, aesthetics, music, everything, And we often think that spirituality has to be raw, boring, without stripped down of all unnecessary paraphernalia. But no, beauty is very important. Presentation is very important. Saumya, to be handsome is very important. Not for the sake of appearing handsome, but it only makes what is within more attractive. So among Gandharvas, I am the chief of the Gandharvas. I am Chitraratha. Sattvic beauty also needs to be adorned, right? I mean, what are ragas? What are these beautiful sort of devotional compositions? What is the beautiful devotional art? What is all the dance forms that we have? They're all contribution of Gandharvas. And when you watch a beautiful performance, when you hear a beautiful musician, maybe in Carnatic music or in some other kind of devotional music, or if you see a beautiful expression in Bharatanatyam or something, it does something to you, right? It's meant to. So not all, music and art can be tamasic, can be rajasic, can be sattvic. So Chitraratha represents that sattvic art, sattvic music, sattvic beauty, right? Which has a beautiful way of conveying and elevating a seeker. It's a different approach than knowledge, different approach than on all these concepts and theories. And it has a part to invoke and to elevate the state of mind of a seeker. And among Siddhas, I am Sage Kapil. Sage Kapila has been, again, there are several Puranic stories about Sage Kapila, about how he could destroy someone by his mere eyes. By his eyes had so much power that they could sort of destroy any being that sort of came in the way or that was doing wrong or something like that. But why is Sage Kapila considered a Siddha, an accomplished perfect soul? A Siddha is one who has Siddhi, who has deep power and deep insight, deep capabilities. So Sage Kapila is the one who has given us Sankhya philosophy. The entire philosophy of chapter 2. Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita is called Sankhya Yoga. A systematic knowledge that talks about Prakriti, Purusha, Atman, that gives gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. So a lot of this Vedantic theory comes from Sankhya philosophy. And Kapila Muni is one who systematized it, right? Who didn't just take Vedic knowledge for at face value. He analyzed it, and from that exploration came out Sankhya philosophy. And it doesn't take, and no random person can do it. Someone with true deep insight, with true siddhis alone can conceive and can create such a thing. So in that regard, among all siddhas, I am the glorious sage Kapila. And he continues, verse number 27. उच्चै श्रवसमश्वानां विद्धिमामृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम् उच्चैश्रवसमश्वानां विद्धिमामृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम् माममृतोद्भवम् उच्चैश्रवसमश्वानां विद्धि माममृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम्. Whenever you have a difficulty chanting, just pause, take a step back and chant it slowly. It will always come to you. You'll realize you're probably skipping a syllable or something like that. Like I was skipping a syllable out here. Mama Mritodbhavam. Of horses know me to be Uchchaishravas, born of nectar. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata. Of men, I am the king. So he continues. He's saying, I am Uchchaishravas of horses. I am Airavata among elephants. If you've heard the story of the churning of the Milky Ocean, the Samudra Manthan, you'll know from the nectar, from the Manthan, before the nectar came out, a lot of glorious things came out. So among them were the divine horse, Uchchaishravas, an incredibly powerful celestial being, a celestial horse, and also Airavata. Airavata emerged from the churning of the Milky Ocean, and Airavata eventually became the elephant of Lord Indra. So among horses, I am not any ordinary horse, I am Uchchaishravas itself. Among elephants, I am not any ordinary elephant, I am Airavata itself. Right? So again, highlighting that I am the most outstanding among these beings, among these species. And similarly, among men, I am the king. I am the foremost. I am that controller. I am that governor. Historically, kings have been designated the role of God or messengers of God or divinely ordained. In fact, to this day, in many kingdoms, particularly also in the Western world, if say for example in Britain, they consider the king as sort of ordained by God to rule over their subjects. But of course, with power comes responsibility, and sustaining that responsibility is hard. That's why kingdoms fall, right? A king deserves to be a king only when they carry that spiritual clarity, not an arrogance of power, but that spirit of service and sacrifice, and that objectivity, that capacity to remain steady, samatvam, in all challenges. Because with power comes a lot of challenges. Who has more problems? You or Modi ji? Today speak to Iran, tomorrow speak to Russia, day after speak to USA. And not just anybody in Iran or Russia and USA, their presidents, their prime ministers or whatever. Must be a hectic job. Do you want it? Especially in a time like this. So if you want to be a king among men, it comes with a responsibility. But it also comes with unbounded power. It comes with a great following. It comes with a great sense of sovereignty, right? So among men, I am the foremost. I am not anyone, any ordinary person. I am the king. I am the foremost among men. And he continues in verse number 28. Ayudhanamaham vajram धेनुनामस्मि कामधुक् प्रजनश्चास्मि कंदर्प सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः. Of weapons I am the Vajra, of cows I am the Kamadhuk, of progenitors I am Kandarpa, and of serpents I am Vasuki. So, again, highlighting that I am the foremost among these things. Of all weapons, the most dreaded, the most powerful was considered the Vajra, and Vajra belonged to Indra. I don't exactly know how Lord Indra ended up attaining the Vajra. I'm sure there's some story behind that as well. I think it came from from some bones of sage. One second.
Dadichi.
It's written out here. The sage Dadichi. Yes. So, what gives Vajra its power is the tapas performed by sage Dadichi. It's not just any ordinary weapon. All that tapas has been preserved in the bones of the sage, and it has become this weapon, right? It's symbolic, of course. So this Vajra obtained by Lord Indra was considered perhaps the most foremost among all weapons. So among all weapons, I am this great grand Vajra. Among all cows, I am no ordinary cow. I am Kamadhuk, Kamadhenu, one who fulfills your desires. Now people will ask, where do I find this cow? I don't know where you find this cow. प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्रे कपाणये ज्ञान मुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृत दुहे नमः. Lord Krishna is the Kamadhuk, Kamadhini. He is the Parijata, the one who gives you that spiritual wisdom which will help you fulfill, not only fulfill, but exhaust your desires. True fulfillment of desires doesn't come with acquisition and enjoyment, it comes with growth. Once you grow above the desire, you've truly fulfilled it. There's no other way to fulfill a desire. No thirst can be quenched. You can only grow above desire. Otherwise, desire is an endless pit. Which is not to say that you shouldn't satisfy your wants and needs, no. But while you satisfy your wants and needs, you must gain the spiritual insight that true liberation is only through growth. What you're looking for is not any particular object or being. What you're looking for is that satisfaction, that liberation. You're looking for that thing, having obtained which you won't want anything. It's almost a paradox. Ye mil jaye, I'll be set. Set for what? Satisfaction is rarely about the thing itself. And if we explore what is happiness, we've said this before in the class. Happiness is cessation of mental agitation. Those agitations have been created by you, and you roam around looking for ways to satisfy that agitation. And when you acquire what you think you want, that agitation is ceased for a certain amount of time. That cessation, that temporary cessation, we call happiness. But rare is the person who questions, why is that agitation coming up in the first place? What is the source of it? What's creating it? Why do I seek what I am seeking? When you delve into it, Swamiji always says, what brought him to the spiritual path? Swami Parthasarathi, he says, I observed what people around me were chasing, people who were regarded as successful among people, the wealthy, the accomplished, the well-regarded, the respected. What were they chasing? And were they happy having gotten what they were chasing? A lot of them had got a lot of what they were chasing. I was just hearing a podcast the other day where a billionaire was talking about money. See, if an ordinary person or if some spiritual master says something about money, you will say, this person doesn't have money. That's why they're saying all these things. Money is not important. Money is this, money is that. No, first of all, no one said money is not important. But that's the general tendency. People think, a spiritual person has come to give a lecture. He is going to give me a lecture about how my money is pointless. But when a rich person says it, everyone will pay attention. So this is a billionaire who was talking about it. And he said, wealth, capital, network, these are all games you play. These are all games you play. And very interesting insight. It's a person who's playing these games at a glorious scale, at a scale much larger than you and me. We may have millions. That person has billions. And not only a few billion, many billions. So sometimes perhaps you need to go through that experience to have a lot to realize that actually I was exaggerating the value of it. I was imagining it to be something altogether different. That insight, if knowledge doesn't give you the insight, experience will give you the insight.
ये आ गई क्या?
So, of cows I am Kamaduk, but it's worth contemplating about what is Kamaduk. What is it that fulfills your desires? Kamadhenu is that wisdom. That wisdom is what at once will liberate you. Of progenitors, I am Kandarpa, I am Kamadeva. One who has, see, we think of procreation or sense indulgence with a certain level of, reticence, particularly in the spiritual path. We think it is wrong or abstinence has been given a certain stage. No. If you look at it as a fact of life, if you look at it as a marvel of creation, as a beautiful expression of Shakti, then you'll be able to divinize it. And Kandarpa is that divinization of sense indulgence. particularly of sex. An act of procreation. So among the progenitors, I am Kandarpa. When such an action is taken up not with a superficial sense of indulgence, but the deep sense of engaging with life. In fact, as a grihastha, it's very important that you take up whatever engagement, whatever indulgence you have with a deep sense of engagement as a process of life. Everything has its place, right? So among all these indulgences, procreation is stands out as perhaps a foremost. It sustains life, and it also, if taken in its depth, can truly help your spiritual process, right? So the king of pleasures, nothing wrong with pleasure if approached with wisdom. There's nothing wrong with pleasures. So I am that king of pleasures. I am Kandarpa. And among serpents, among the nagas, I am Vasuki. Sarpanam, I am Vasuki. So of course, in the Puranas, you'll hear glorious tales of Vasuki. Vasuki was also the rope used in the Samudra Manthan, right? And there are a lot of stories about the glory of Vasuki. If you look at it historically, perhaps sort of worship of snakes was performed by a sect of people, and including and absorbing them into the spiritual tradition, into this broad sort of canvas of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, was done beautifully, right? So Naga Puja, worship of ancestors. I mean, a lot of snake worship is actually done in the form of worship of ancestors, and even to this day, in many parts of the country, particularly say in South India, in Kerala and all, Naga Puja is very, very, very popular, right? And Vasuki among them was the king of serpents. Vasuki was represented as a great devotee of Parabrahma, of God, of Vishnu. So among all these serpents, among all of them, I am the foremost. I am Vasuki. With that thought, we'll conclude today, and we'll continue our exploration of these vibhutis. But yeah, I can see a bunch of questions as Balaji, this Prachi, and Ankit. Ankit, you have a question?
Not a question, really. The podcast you mentioned, are you talking about the one with Nikhil Kamath and Chamath, where he's talking about fame, intellect, and capital?
Yeah, I'm talking about Chamath.
Yes.
Hmm?
Okay. I
What's
thought,
interesting is that Chamath talks so eloquently about how money and capital and network is a game, but what is truly meaningful, he couldn't quite articulate. You know, Um, that's why I immediately thought of one of my Guru Bhais. I was like, you should meet him. He moves among billionaires. I sent him a message, go meet this guy. I'll find your way to him. You were saying, oh, I find what is meaningful is being present with my wife and kids.
yeah.
Okay. But his other insight was very interesting. I was like, well, clearly this person, by one way or the other, has learned something about the meaning of.
I mean, he knows that it's a game, but he still like sort of can't help but keep playing the game.
And playing the game is not a problem. If you can, if it is your prarabdha, if it is your swadharma, play the game. If it is swadharma, play the game. But are you being able to gain spiritual wisdom alongside? Are you being able to shift that sort of identity? Are you being able to have that inner transformation? That's what's important. So there's nothing wrong in playing the game. That transformation will determine, are you engrossed and engaged and attached in the game? Are you able to be truly objective, right? And I'm sure a person of that stature, they've achieved so much. Very, very smart person, no doubt about it, right? So truly, that insight coming from them is meaningful. It should make a lot of us think about what is it that we're chasing, and what is it that we're giving importance to, and how we should relate to it. More than that, he's not saying don't chase. He's not saying don't play the game, but how we should relate to it.
Actually, you often hear people who have achieved so much say something along those lines, but yeah, they develop a sort of detachment from it, but yeah, they're still like sort of participating in the process in an aloof manner.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there is definitely some detachment, right?
Some level.
If one can accelerate that detachment, that's where spiritual growth will happen, you know. And but that will require tapas. That's tapas.
So, what is acceleration of the detachment?
It comes with immersion in knowledge. It comes with I mean, reflection of these truths of life as elaborated in the scripture, right? Now you can have krama mukti, you can have stage wise liberation over lives, or you can have kaivalya mukti. It all depends on with what intensity you take up, your reflection, right? So when he says if you live with certain spiritual values, you're born into an environment of peace and prosperity. That's Chamat, right? He's been able to overcome a certain negative environment and create an environment of peace and prosperity. And that's the path of Krama Mukti. Gradual, you'll spend a day in Brahmaloka. How long is a day in Brahmaloka? How many kalpas?
4.2 billion.
Yeah. I mean, that's symbolic, right? And it's a gradual process. But the scriptures are interested in providing you Kaivalya Mukti, an accelerated growth. Balaji, you're there?
Yeah.
Or you've left?
Yes, Ji, I am here.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah. See, my working hours have changed, so that's the reason why I cannot attend your class. So I follow you in YouTube. So whenever I get time, I just attend the thing.
Nonetheless, I'm glad to see you out here.
Thank you. Me too. I just want to ask this question. You have been talking about the relationship of one has got a wealth in the podcast. So can you relate to the Gen Z thinking, early retirement, retire at 30, retire at 40, vis-a-vis a person, okay, let's take Guruji, who Swami, who works up to 95, 96 and still active. So can you relate that to the podcast? Or can you relate to that? How people relate to work
See,
and
I
money?
think what you're talking about is called FIRE, right? I don't know. Financial independence, retire early, right? Is that what you're referring to?
No, financial freedom, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
They call it FIRE, financial independence, retire early.
Oh,
See,
okay, right.
we live in a time when perhaps in the history of the world, it has been, the easiest to, I mean, the most democratic sort of, time to earn money and gain prosperity. There's no doubt about that. And especially with advancements in technology, where prosperity was reserved for very few, only the king and his close subjects could earn prosperity. Then only those in power, in government and government connections could, earn prosperity. Till a few decades back, that was still true. You would get big contracts only if you were, if you had some connection somewhere, and that's where networking was important, right? it's it's a basic truth in all of our businesses. But now that has been a lot democratized, and uh, with the opening of financial markets and this and that, the the opportunity for especially a young person who is keen to learn, who's able to attune to the pace of change, and learn quickly, who has high udana, they can become very prosperous in a scale maybe unimaginable to you, and perhaps even to me, who's someone who's maybe one generation earlier than a Gen Z, or two generations earlier than a Gen Z. So, but what do I feel about? Can I relate to fire? You know, Financial independence is a great thing. There's no denying that. But what does it mean to retire? That is what is important. I think what perhaps retirement will come to mean in the future will be retirement from a way of functioning that requires you to be constrained simply to earn money and make a living. It doesn't mean that you will stop action, you know. In a way, that's great. You'll be able to pursue a swadharma without worrying about, you know, where you'll fill your stomach from. And that'll be fantastic, I think. When you talk about people like Elon Musk, when we talk about people who can look into the future, someone like Elon Musk who is at the forefront, he's saying within a few years we'll not have to work. Now you can look at that with a sense of fear, or you can look at that with a sense of great optimism. That what he means is that of course he's saying AI will bring about so much of a change that the cost of goods and services will go down, and perhaps sort of this whole social equation will change. There'll be universal basic income, etc., etc. And I don't know whether all those things will happen, but that's his foresight. But that will leave you with a lot of time to be creative and explore, and express yourself, in a much more honest manner. So action will not stop. I don't think retirement early means action will stop. In fact, people who have that idea that, okay, after 30, 40, I will retire and then just sit by a beach and enjoy, my pina colada or something, they'll realize within a few weeks only that, okay, this cannot sustain. In fact, a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of anecdotes from people whose companies have been acquired, and at the age of 35, they have seen so much money that 100 generations before them hadn't seen. Suppose, you come across these people and they say, yeah, first year I didn't know what to do. I was just, in different parts of the world, just indulging. And then I realized I couldn't live like this. Life cannot continue to be like this. So once you gain financial freedom or financial independence, action takes a different direction. Action is no longer constrained by simply finding a means to earn, right? And when that becomes a reality for more and more people, I think it'll only lead to, more creativity in the world, which is not a bad thing. Now, how can we infuse spirituality into that is going to be exciting, because Swadharma itself is not sufficient for Karma Yoga. Swadharma, along with values, along with selflessness, along with this wisdom, is what is required for true spiritual evolution.
In this case, the last observation is that, okay, as you said, the work is not a necessity but a choice, a work or business. And the second is that, okay, from the scarcity movement, they go by with a mission. Okay, after they make money, their necessities have been taken care. So unless there is a mission is there, there's no fuel for them to work for.
Absolutely. Right? And you're absolutely right. And it's not that everyone has a mission. Look, there are tamasic people, there are rajasic people, there are sattvic people. Sadhguru said something interesting a couple of months ago. He said, with all this technology, 40% of people will become absolute vegetables. I don't know if his percentages are right. Maybe it's more. means they'll become good for nothing. They'll become couch potatoes. Because there's no mission. There's going to be no motive. Whatever Swadharma is there, even that is going to remain inert. So it'll lead to laziness, it'll lead to indolence. He said 30% people are going to do crazy things, cross social boundaries, misuse technology. There's going to be a lot of violence from that section of people, right? And 30% of people are going to do extraordinary things, incredible things, which are going to benefit humanity in unimaginable ways. If I can relate to what he's saying, he has broken up tamas, rajas, sattva into 40, 30, 30. He's saying 40% tamasic people will rot, 30% rajasic people will go crazy, and 30% sattvic people will do beautiful things. Right. Remains to be seen if that proportion holds. God knows, right? But the principle will remain the same, I think, that there'll always be a fight between aggressive goodness and aggressive badness, and aggressive goodness will have to, sort of build its forces to emerge victorious against aggressive badness, and that's how the world will proceed. It's going to be a Mahabharat, a modern Mahabharat again, right?
Do you think such a case thinking is going to be the rarest precious commodity?
Do you think what?
Thinking. A thinker.
It's already a rare commodity.
Okay.
Who thinks? Rare is the person that thinks. Most of us just reproduce thoughts. We regurgitate a little bit of what we have read. So,
No,
but what is true?
generally,
What is true is that information can no longer be an excuse. The lack of information or the lack of resources. Slowly, that is also going to become an excuse. So long as you will have a will, the way has become easier. Earlier, you needed divine intervention. Where there is a will, there is a way. Now, divinity has descended into, so long as you have a will, the way will find its way. But again, I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know. I'm not deeply insightful. So, any other questions?
thank you.
Okay. If not, then we'll conclude today. Is Divya ji here? Divya Midha ji here? I guess not. She's left. Okay. Well, I will be in Calcutta this weekend. So for those of you who want to have an in-person class, again, Divya ji has offered to host class. So we'll plan around that in the group and try to make it on Sunday. So the next class Sunday, we'll have a hybrid. We'll have it online as well as in person, and we'll see you back in class on Sunday. Okay. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll.
Thank
Hari
you.
Om Ji. Thanks.
Hari Om.